Hey guys, the 70, it's actually a 71, it's 8 of 70, but 71 Beetle convertible is, I got a little bit of a shopping list going for it. I sprayed some CRC on the pedal cluster, got all that stuff kind of freeing up and letting it show all the pivots for the convertible top. I got those all sprayed so that won't get any damage, just things like that. Again, I got a shopping list for it, and I want to go get it registered as antique and just make sure there's no issues with the paper trail on the car before I go any further with that. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about Subway Bob's, I believe it's a 54, it's either 54 or 56, I'm going with 54. Beetle that I had in probably about a year ago, and we did a bunch of stuff to it. It sat for 25 years, and got it to run and yard drive is where he wanted me to get it to. Unfortunately, it's been having some like intermittent start, not start problems, starting for fuel, some other issues. So we're gonna get into that. Bob is not wanting to do the work on it himself anymore, so asked me to do so, and I said sure. Some of the stuff that he was dealing with was it was starting for fuel. Here's the fuel pump, the pedestal mount that it sits on. I don't even want to know what you want to call these. They're kind of like a Bakelite material. Apparently it had fractured on the inside and bent the push rod that runs the fuel pump. So the channel that the push rod moves in broke away, probably bent down, and then the camshaft kinked it, and he started losing fuel pressure. That was one issue. I believe he has that taken care of. Another was the starter would work and not work from the key, and then you go underneath and jump it or tap it, and it would kind of go and not go. And then he brought the starter to a starter rebuild place, and they said the starter was fine. So a couple of things, we're gonna go probably do a starter button. He's got it somewhere. He's probably gonna want to use that. Just a heavy on-off switch right to the starter. Here's that old mount that was broke. And you can see there was a whole casting there that's not there anymore. There it is. So that's the piece that broke off and turned sideways on him. There's the push rod too. So that's been resolved, but again, we will look into the start issues with it cranking and not cranking from a key. I'm going to go check in all the grounds and all. Fuel, the quality of fuel, the fuel tank is probably going to need to get purged. And on the very early cars, they had a lever that went to the bottom of the fuel tank, and you had a reserve, kind of like a motorcycle, had a standoff in the tank. Let's see if we can get a light and I'll show you. There's a standoff in the tank, one's higher than the other, and you just turn the pet to grab that. Let's see what we see. I'm trying to look through the camera and look at the same time. There is a white, see that little white thing right there? I just saw it a second ago. This is like a test in dexterity. There it is. See that thing right there? So that's supposed to be able to allow fuel from a higher up or a lower position, depending on where the reserve is set. Plus you can see all the crusties in the bottom of the tank. So I have a feeling that is causing us a bunch of issues. So we're gonna empty the tank, purge that stuff out of there, clean it. If we have to seal it, that kind of thing, and go from there. So I'm gonna get up in the air. I'm gonna work on the crank, no crank condition first, and we'll kind of continue on. So I kind of want to start from scratch and go over everything that needs to be gone over, and not go by anybody else's information, because sometimes that kind of shoots you in the foot. The very first thing I want to go check is the condition of the 6-volt battery, and I figure we'll go hook up to that and we'll check that, and we'll start. You can see my meter. It's showing probably just shy of 7 volts. Let's go give her a load. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Seems like it held okay. So the battery should be all right. The next thing I want to go check for is I want to look to see if there's a drain on the system. So there's already a battery terminal off. Doesn't matter, negative, positive. I got a test light on it, and I want to take the test light, go from that end to the post. If something was drawing, something was staying on, which he was having problems that his battery was going dead, the light would light up right now. Let me see if I can. I'm going to turn the key on. Alright, so that should be, the coil should be drawing power right now. And as you can see, the test light lights up. So I don't see anything that would let the battery, turn the key back off, drain the system, the battery down. He said the battery would just come back and be stone dead. I don't see anything causing that right now, but we may find something in the future. Could be, you know, who knows. So I just plugged the terminal back on the battery. I just want to see what we get. All right. So that part of it seems like it's actually doing what it should be doing. But again, we're going to go put a hot button going from the crank post on the starter right to the battery, and then the switch will be in between. I also got to locate a high amperage resettable fuse for that, like you would use on a your trailer, electric brake wiring, where it resets itself. Just in case this thing ever drew too much and it would break, or you got a short, it would kick the breaker out instead of just baking the wires and whatnot. One of the things on a 6-volt car is it's 6 volts, but it's double the current compared to 12 volts. And you don't get nothing for nothing, you know, it's not a free ride. So if you have 12 volts and say something's drawing, well, we just make up a number, 10 amps. And if you have 6 volts, then it's going to draw 20 amps. So all the wiring and everything is a lot thicker on a 6-volt, original 6-volt car. That's why it's actually kind of good when you convert them to 12. You don't lose much along the wiring. But one of the things that can be a really big issue is all ground points. And this is the ground strap for the transmission. And it looks a little on the cruddy side. So we're going to go pull that apart and clean those within an inch of their lives, and then put probably some dielectric grease on the ends of them. Because any kind of resistance is now double the resistance too when you're dealing with this. Kind of giving a quick look under, see if I see anything else. There's the starter, and I believe this starter is the one that was in crusty. Maybe we'll take that end off that terminal right there and give that a little love too. Well, I'm going to disconnect the battery, and I'm going to work on some of that stuff. Okay, so I took those nuts off. Doesn't look terrible. I'm going to go clean those up on a wire wheel. I'll put that back on. And that looks like I could use a pretty good cleaning. That doesn't look all that great. Let's see what the trans. Yeah. Both of them can use a little bit. So we'll get a wire wheel on a little air tool, and we'll get up in there and zap up and clean some of that material off. Same as having pretty much a dirty battery post, you know. So continuing on with the same theme of dealing with loss, areas of guess we can call it energy loss. Looking at these terminals, and these are kind of like are supposed to be like a temporary repair. And once you stick the wire in the back up and suck them down, they're supposed to be really a soldered or crimped connection. And with this one, one of the problems that had happened to it in the past was you can see the black cable and the red cable. Well, the red is actually the ground. It's going to the ground strap right here on the body, and then the black goes to the starter. I think last time I put these tags on it because they actually ended up getting hooked up backwards, and we believe it caused a problem with the generator, which you can see could be an issue. It's trying to do everything backwards. So having said that, I think at this point that one's kind of ratty, and I think I want to take and get a new one. I'm going to take that right off of there and go to the store, and we'll get one that's built together. And then on this one, I'm just going to change the end on it for now, and see if we can get this one again in a black instead of a red, and maybe stop that from happening in the future. And again, we'll clean up all those unions and put the same protecting lube on them too, to keep them from corroding. And just again, you just got to have really good contacts on all that stuff. And back from the store. And I say, that is much better than that. And on the other end, it's kind of the same thing. That one was crimped on there and hammered down and drilled out. And then we got one, I probably have to open that hole a little bit, but that should be much better shape. It's a little longer, but that's all right. Longer than shorter. And it's even the right color, imagine that. So I'll clean up those terminals, and then the other one, I think I'm going to go with one of those for now. And after a little cleanup and cut back, a new one on there, and then I just cut the end of that cable right off with a saw, and started fresh, so that all that spewed out, looking frazzled ends, none of that was used over, and we just got back to clean copper. And I put that on there. The ground's a little on the long side, but they had that, or you can go the other way where it was fairly short, and I figure better longer than shorter, right? So now, it's actually, that ain't good, huh? It's missing some meat. Make sure we still crank. That sounds good. And I guess now I can play with the starter, but that seems to be operating okay. Boy, it's dark back here, huh? Gotta get us some light. We'll start looking to fuel redemption and getting the motor running right. So I want to see if it will run once we feed fuel to it and then chase the fuel problem out. So what we have is just another lawnmower, snowblower, gas tank with a fuel line on it, and James dropped off his IV pole, so we're going to go use that. The gas line just feeding to the fuel pump, and I want to see if the fuel pump system is working and pumps to the carb. I did dump some fuel down in the carb, so I don't have to crank the bejesus out of it to get it up there, but it should stay running from that point. So let's go give some crank time and see what we get. It's slightly breezy. Hopefully the wind doesn't get you. Harder. I wouldn't exactly say it's smooth. So I'm going to let that run for about 5-10 minutes, let it warm up, make sure that the fuel is going to it and stays running, and I'll turn you back on. I've had it run a little bit. I've tweaked the carbs, kind of get the idle down. I can go a little lower. rotate the distributor a little bit. But I think this front cylinder's not doing much. I don't see much of a difference on that one. Although it doesn't sound bad when you rev it up. It does spark. So that's what I'm seeing right now. I see an issue with that cylinder being weak. So we're going to check valve adjustment on that. Probably be our first bet. Again, the plug wire arced, but it could have a bad end on that. And we could have an issue on this side too. I also grabbed the distributor and I moved it probably about 15 degrees this way, 15-20 degrees, and that helped it a lot. It was way off. Generally the advances kind of like to point backwards. So let's see what's happening inside there, see if we can get that cylinder back. Maybe just go right with adjusting the valves. I may just try getting a compression test there in there. Let's see what that has to offer us. That looks pretty new. I know it's dark, but we're in the process of checking the valve lash on number 2 cylinder. So number 1 cylinder is right here. I rotated it a quarter of the way to where the plug wire of number 2 cylinder is, which is right there. And then I know I can adjust the valves on that 1 cylinder. Now the motor's warm. You kind of want to do these cold, but I'm looking for a condition that the valve is on the tight side, and this is a 6 thou feeler gauge, and that guy's fine. I went right through there. Let's see if I can do this without switching hands. And this one is also fine. You might have to take my word for it. I'm getting a cramp. I will screw with it till the day I die. Anyway, see so it's got plenty of play in there. I think the valves are a little on the loose side actually, but that would not give us our condition, just make it a little rappy and clappy. What I'm gonna go do is see if possibly the cylinder head is a little on the loose side. So I'm just gonna put a socket on this guy. I expect this cylinder to have the issue. And I just want to see like if these guys are like finger tight or not. Generally when they go, they'll be fairly loose, and see if either the studs are pulling out or if the heads just need to be retorqued. But that will give me a very good indication when I go to turn that. And if it's not, then the cylinder just has an issue internally, whether the rings are no good or there's a score or one of the valves aren't seating properly. But that's what we're here to try to troubleshoot. So, I got a little palm ratchet. Let's get down on there, just see if it's no, that's not our issue. So it's not like the cylinder heads are studs are pulling and it's losing compression between. These don't run head gaskets. Actually, it might have a copper crush ring, but I don't believe it's leaking between the cylinder and the top of the head. Usually when that happens, it's called blow by. You'll hear like an exhaust leak when you rev it up. So I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with this, but it's not. I don't think it's something simple. We're probably going to let it run a little bit, and I want to check compression on one of the cylinders to make sure I do not have an issue with my gauge setup. So I'm just trying to do a redundant on that. So we'll probably put it on this cylinder, and we'll see what compression we get on that. But we weren't over 50 pounds, and we should be up around at least 100. Alright, so instead of just kind of like screwing around, sticking a compression tester in and running and looking at one cylinder, I decided to pull all the plugs, just do a regular compression test and hold it full throttle, and that can affect what the number is. You can kind of see that now. That cylinder right there is running at 80 pounds. The number one cylinder is at 85 pounds. Got 90 pounds and 90 pounds on the 4 cylinders. And here's the 4 spark plugs that came out of those cylinders. I don't know how well the light's kind of showing up. They look like they've been running quite rich, but I don't see that as the fault why it's skipping a beat on that cylinder. I have a feeling that this motor is just the pistons and rings and jugs, I have a feeling, are tired and they're just not building that much compression. 90's kind of, you're kind of at the bottom really at 90. 85 is kind of weak, and even when I pulled the plug off of this cylinder, it would show a difference, but it didn't show nowhere near as much of a difference if I pulled one of these 2 sides off. So and then 80's probably just knocking it right out of the realm, which is just not enough to make a good bang before going for it. So I think what I'm going to do is, the motor's still warm, I'm going to let it cool off probably over the night, and tomorrow morning I'm going to go around and readjust the valves. I might even pull the rockers off, try retorquing the bottom of the heads, see if any of them take anything, and kind of go from there. But I have a feeling that I already know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure that we're not leaving any avenue unchecked. So with that, I'm probably going to go wrap it up for tonight, but I may or may not pick up this video tomorrow, and we'll continue on. One last thing I wanted to mention is I went and I ohmed out all my wires just to make sure we didn't have a bad plug wire, and all of them kind of came in around 1K resistance, which is fine. So there's not a wire that's causing us to have an issue. I just want to look up on these older motors and just make sure my what I thought I remember is what I remember. And we're looking at the first one goes up to 53, and then 54 on, which is what we're going to be, which is going to be a 36 horsepower. And you go across the point gap to plug gap, point gap, and then timing and compression. And compression should come in around between 100 and 114 is the window that they're looking for. If it was the earlier motor, it'd be 85 to 107. And then they kind of increase generally over time as the motors got a little bit bigger. You can kind of see there. Most of the modern motors you do a compression test on, you get like 130, 125 is kind of where they'd hit. Once you start getting down to about 100, then those would have an issue. So again, I have a feeling we're just getting too low on the scale of what the issues are with this, but we just want to point that out.